Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CleanTech Lithium investor presentation. Throughout this recorded meeting, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. Please submit them at any time just using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Before we begin, we'd just like to submit the following poll, and I'm sure the company will be most grateful for your participation. And without any further ado, Daniel, if I may hand over to you, sir.
Mark, thank you very much, as always. Steve, good evening to you.
Hi, Dan.
So obviously this is a quick update largely directed at our existing shareholders. And just to do button braces, I just want to be clear to everybody. This is just an informational update about the RNS that the company's just put out about the proposed financing. This is neither a solicitation or an offer to participate. I want to be clear that Fox Davis Capital is not licensed to take direct descriptions from individuals, nor is this a financial promotion. It's up on the RNS, and there's a whole bunch of disclaimers about who this offer is targeted to. This is just to inform investors, and I will outline what I would do if I was an existing shareholder. And obviously, everybody needs to take their own investment decisions and talk to their own investment advisors, etc. So with that, everybody, we're progressing on. We've been gearing up. As you know, we had the announcements. We've now got the green light down. I know people have been long suffering for the ASX. I won't go into all the details, it's paperwork, but talking into some of the key investors that we had, and the balancing going into, we had one of the main investors said, look, why don't we strengthen up the balance sheet? It'd be good for you guys to get going and to go onto the ASX with more cash on the balance sheet. So having spoken to one, we sort of talked to some of the key institutions, and there was a feeling that because the market here, it would be better to get some funding in to de-risk the ASX listing so that we can afford to do much less if we need to. And as such, we started this conversation actually when things were down at like 14.5, 15 pence. So at that point in time, we were talking about things being at a premium, but then the market went up and then the market came back again. So the company's decided to undertake a placing. And one of the institutions said, look, guys, there are 22 AIM companies out raising money. I think about sort of half of them are mining companies. And they're saying they're seeing things being done at a substantial discount to market, including either a half or a full warrant at either a premium or market. So if we do things at a discount, it's damaging for everybody. But at the same time, like all exploration companies, we need to bring funds into the company and really get us through the PFS and onto the ASX. So the deal that was come up with was to do a deal at a premium to market when we started the conversation. And then it was going to be at a discount to market when we were at 17, and then it was at market, but with a full warrant. The full warrant to be at a discount 11 to give the incentivization to people to come in and buy fresh capital into the company. That's a 4-year warrant to give enough horizon that it's appealing because it takes us into when the company would hopefully be into production, but it's locked up for 12 months so that nobody can go and sell, because obviously we don't wish to have any selling pressure as we go through this year and through to the ASX. So that was led by one fund out of Hong Kong for about 800,000. Regal, our main shareholder, is following. APAC Funds is following. Miton, Rab Capital, Mark Denning, and then the rest is all existing high net worths that I know. Now, the way we structured it was to put in this broker option so that if an existing shareholder saw that, and in order that we don't disenfranchise our shareholder base who have been very supportive, and we all appreciate that this has been disappointing in the recent share price, that a shareholder could ring their broker and get their broker to call me as a broker to Fox Davis and to put in an order. And we've also have one fund that wasn't able to meet today that might have an interest that would strengthen. So we left that broker option. I gave myself loads of time, but I hope to close that off by the end of the week. And that was one of the easiest and quickest ways to make sure that we could facilitate ensuring that all people could participate who are existing shareholders if they want to. So I know everybody gets disappointed with any time there's a funding, but the reality is pre-revenue. The company needs to raise capital, and by doing this now and having had the offer on the table, I think, and Steve will comment a second for the board, it seemed prudent in the current market conditions to take the money while it was offered, and to substantially de-risk the amount. So this will allow me that if I need to go and just do a small retail raise. I know some people have talked about the ASX, but we are now updating the prospectus, and then these numbers will slot into the prospectus. I am heading down very shortly, and I will go and stay in Australia until the ASX is done, which is still targeted for the end of March, possibly the beginning of April. And then the other one is we've been focusing capital into the operations. So as part of this, there will be a little bit of further funding to get us back and do a bit of marketing for new investors. We appreciate everybody turning up for these, but it's mostly the audience here is our existing shareholders, who, while everybody appreciates the update, everybody here, like me, is fairly fully invested into CleanTech. So I'm going to be spending a bit of time and effort telling the story to new investors, also a bit of European marketing, which has been very successful since us in the past. So that was the rationale. The book is pretty much covered now. I've got a few people to confirm overnight, but we're raising up to the 2.4. I can't formally say anything here. It has to legally go out on the RNS. But obviously, I've been very encouraged by the response, and we go into this having a fairly committed book of indications before you launch something like this. So we are going to have questions, but Steve, maybe if I just invite you to comment on the board's thinking, and then we can take and try and answer as many questions. And then we are going to try and keep this to just another 5-6 minutes. This is purely for an informational update because I need to get some legal documents back in overnight. Steve.
No, our efforts are concentrated to make sure that we can have a successful ASX listing and get ourselves into position to have substantive discussions with potential strategic partners, to bring in those partners in at the project level for the next stage of financing. And the areas that we're concentrating our activities is, first of all, on the sale. The government announced a couple of days ago that they will finalize their decisions on which projects will go forward into the streamlined process and direct negotiations. We expect to be one of those, and that'll be done by the end of March. We are wanting to complete the pre-feasibility study. We're very, very well advanced on that. The scheduled time was the end of March, so that's all coming together at the same time. We've said that we've produced very high-grade lithium carbonate. We want to make larger quantities at our partner's plant of conductive energy, so that we can supply battery-grade lithium carbonate to potential off-takers. So all of this is coming together at that end of March period, which makes it very attractive for new investors in Australia to be able to compare our project compared to the hard rock projects having to send concentrate to China. So I think we can get ourselves into a position that we have a very good reception in Australia. So that's our thinking.
Steve, thank you. So, gentlemen, so this is more one. We really do try and work with the whole of our shareholder base as much as possible. So this was just a quick one, but as you could appreciate, there's quite a lot of going back and forth. But to Steve M, Steve wrote on our questions here, we understand the need for the raise, but it seems that existing shareholders will get diluted with no option for involvement. Steve, there's two things. So Meet the Company have a service, which I'm going to work with tomorrow morning, under the broker option, to send it out to all of the likes of, oh, Mark, help me. It's the, who are the retail brokers?
So basically, it's a B2B retail capital raising platform that will enable Fox Davis to engage with intermediaries, and you'll be able to interact with your intermediaries should that all be approved in the appropriate time frame.
So it's the people like Hargreaves Lansdowne, a few others, who you can't wall cross and don't have somebody. We will send it to them. They will look at their registers, and they will send in an invitation to just shareholders who appear on that register. That doesn't cover everybody. Now, so I have this broker option at my discretion. We're not going to go and take a whole bunch of new people, but if a shareholder was to ring me up and say, by the way, Daniel, I'm one of our shareholders, we're X, my account's with so and so, I've instructed XYZ broker to put an order, then we'll collate those in to facilitate so that the existing shareholders who have been extremely supportive are not disenfranchised or disadvantaged from this raise. Mark H, assuming that both the placings are fully taken up, including the warrants, what is the level of dilution to the existing shareholders? So, Mark, if you think that we're raising up to 2.4 million, and let me just do a quick one here onto Bloomberg. I think our market cap is about today. Gordon was going to join us in, but where are we? We're roughly 13.6. raising to us. So it's about 15%. Now, the warrants will be slightly more, but the warrants all depends on when they're. So if all the warrants were taken and invested at a later date, which does bring in further capital, we'll be around about 25. If the broker option is taken, that will be more, but that actually now they've granted me the option. So that I'm using as a quick way to make sure that I don't leave anybody behind from the shareholder group. And there was 1 or 2 funds on the register who were in Indaba, the big mining conference in South Africa last week, and we weren't able to get hold of. And the first day back, some of them are in Australia. So that was just that option. And again, that's mostly so that we don't leave anyone behind. I have to say, apart from about 70,000 from some wealth managers who say it's all existing shareholders. So all of this should stay on the register. It's at market. It's all people who have been into multiple rounds and are averaging down. So there'll be a reporting agent. So Athos is the lead, and they were in the last one. Regal obviously will be doing their share. APAC were in since the IPO. Miton's been in. I think they came out, then they came in the last 2. RAB has been supportive all the way through. Then there's a number of high net worth. So this should be quite tightly held. I mean, last time we had to rely, to be honest, a little bit on some of the private client brokers, and they just then hammered it all back. But hopefully by doing it at the bid side of the market, this should be seen as positive. And then I'll close up the auction fairly soon. So Mark, that'll be it. I can run the exact numbers for you. By all means, my email is out, there's public, and we'll run it. And then we'll know where we're going to be there. To Toby M, yes, this is going to be deducted from the amount on the ASX. Having had the offer, I was starting to do some pre-marketing about going to the ASX, and somebody said, look, the market might be coming out, it might not. I'm worried about the company's balance sheet. Why don't we do this now? And so a couple of funds made the offer, and that then de-risks the amount that we have to put in the ASX. So part of doing this was to de-risk the ASX so that we've got a stronger balance sheet, and also to have cash on the balance sheet going into meetings on the ASX. But we now do have all the approvals. There's a bit of paperwork done to rejig some numbers from this, but I am decamping down to Australia to make sure we get that away. And we've made a commitment to all the guys coming in now that we will move forward on the ASX. I don't want to go into the details of what it was because it's to the end, but it was such a stupid procedural issue, but it was all sorted at the end of last year. But then Australia's away for a month and then they get back. So, but anyway, we're now guns blazing, and I'm on for that. So yes, Toby, that will be taken off the amount that we're looking to raise. Ian's got a question here about what will Trump's various tariffs have on the future of the company. I don't think it's going to have any, but Steve, do you want to comment quickly?
Well, on what is announced, no, so far, none. No, clearly there's tariffs on China and its neighbors wanting to decrease the drug traffic and migrant traffic across the border. We're going to be a supplier of battery grade materials into the United States under a free trade agreement with the United States. So I think there'll be no effect on us at all.
I agree on that one. Will private investors be able to participate in the fundraising via the broker option? So private investors, I can't deal with private investors. Neither can I. I can, where I know people under the various financial professionals rules, if I had your details and I know and we'd spoken and I could see you on the register, then I can wall cross you on a deal. So where I know people, or Fox Davis Capital has put individuals into the deal historically when it was private, or they've come through, or most of the high net worths I deal with are overseas. So in Europe, or in the case of, say, someone like Mark Denning, he's in the Bahamas. So I don't solicit into UK private individuals, and we don't rely on exemptions 48, 49, and 50 under the Financial Promotions Act. But once you're on the register, if I know you, I can reach out to you and wall cross you under the exemption of members. So if a private investor was to call their broker, and their broker called me and said, we wish to participate if you go ahead with the broker option, then I could collate that order and put those orders in and try and satisfy. And if somebody was to do that, they might also want to just drop me an email to say, I'm a shareholder, my broker is X, I'm going to be instructing my broker. But again, that has to be your decision, and I can't be soliciting or promoting to you just under the rules and regs. So that was for Ansel C. So Steve M asking the same question. So that's going to go forward, and we will get back. Tim A, there's no minimum subscription in mind. This is not, someone's asking about the Delta. This is not designed to encourage new private clients or individuals or parties like that. This will be at my discretion, and we'll try and find a way. So we're either going to use the platform here with Meet the Company to go through people like Hargreave, Hale, etc., and AJ Bell, to people who are on the register, or to those institutions. George S is asking, does this raise structure not incentivize participants to sell their stock and simply net the delta between the issue price and the warrant? I suppose technically you could. The major funds don't. I mean, they're taking this incentivization. They've all been in, they've held their stock, the warrants to incentivize. They don't sort of play around on this. I mean, as I say, I think if we ended up at the full 2.4 million, 2.32, it's institutional and high net worth who've been in for every round. They don't. You might get an incentive for somebody to subscribe and then sell, but the problem is, why would you sell at 16? I mean, you may have the capacity. This may hold the price at 16 for the next 2 weeks. But to be honest, I can't see that really going on. Sorry, that's one of our people to subscribe their order. Most of the people we deal with are fairly long-term shareholders who believe that we are at the bottom of the lithium price cycle, who are encouraged by the fact that the company is now producing lithium from its pilot plant, who appreciate that the PFS is a major landmark in the company's development. We're very encouraged by the fact that the government's been working with us in terms of the polygon sizes for the sale application, which we're very confident, well, you can't always say, about getting direct negotiations for the government for the operating license. Having the sale and the PFS will be huge towards moving the company story. And I think if you think you've got material and news flow, we've got some really significant news flow coming in the 8 weeks. Why would you sell the shares at 16? Because, yeah, I mean, and the people we deal with, to be honest, have got the capital and the base to go and do it. I mean, Regal's coming in for a couple of hundred for their pro rata, but I mean, they're running 17 billion Aussie dollars now. I mean, they raised $1 billion in fresh capital. My problem is we're such a small footnote in most of these investors' portfolios. It doesn't there. And everybody on the register who I've taken orders from has been in at every round since the IPO in all cases, and in most cases since the pre-IPO. So they're just averaging, and they think we have a lot of upside from here. Ian saying thank you. Ian, look, I appreciate it. I didn't want to leave it out without explaining it. I didn't want the Telegram group to start getting off and the rest of it. All raisings, guys, I wish we were up above 22. I wish the market had a stronger sentiment. I think the UK is just fairly benign at the moment, which is why I'm committed to getting us on the ASX. We do now have out of this, originally Steve had asked me to raise 1 to 2 million, and we agreed that anything over 2, there'd be a slight budget. So we will be looking again to do things like Shares Magazine. We will be looking again to do Investors Chronicle. We will be looking again to do London Southeast, Armchair Trader, interviews with Vox, interviews with Zia. We do get a response from that. We need to be getting some new guys. And at the end of last year, we focused all the capital the company had into operations. So this gives a little bit now, and that really worked well for us in the past. And we're talking to some other guys, some new guys in Europe with, again, a new audience. We have a really good story. It's just my job as the company's broker to go out and find new people. I try as much as I can to keep everybody here in the loop and on side and informed. But my real job is to now go and find new people. And the other one's thinking, guys, we did a 2-for-1 consolidation. I think the very first round was at 10 pence, which would be 20 today. The pre-IPO was at 20, which would be 40. The IPO was at 60. We went to a high of like 92, which would be £1.80 today. So there's very little volume here because not many people would be willing to sell here because they'd be selling underwater, apart from the market makers jobbing back and forth. And then we've got a few of existing shareholders who've been buying a bit on market. But I don't think it would take very much marketing for me to, if I was able to be successful in getting some new interest, and we have done this several times before, I don't think it'll take much for us to start to jump up from here. So, no, it's John A. So the last question. It shouldn't put any further pressure on the placing price because this is being done at the bid. When we started negotiating this, it was being done at a premium to market. However, then it takes a while to wall cross and get people back. The market then moved up to 17 and a bit, and now we've come back. So it's being done at market, but there's no reason why anybody would be looking to sell here below a placing price. So I think it'll hold us still for a few days while I sort out this broker option. And then from there, it'll give me some money, and you're going to see us doing a slew of new interviews and marketing and IR initiatives. And then we're into getting the PFS and hopefully the government one, but we all know that depends on the government. And then we're on to the ASX. So what we have to do now is, the reason why there's a bit of caveat about the numbers and the delay people have asked was, having had this offer to take the money, and it's prudent to do so, Gordon and his colleague Dermot now have to just sort of rejig some of the prospectus and put these numbers in, and the fully diluted share capital, etc., and the number of warrants that has to feed back into the lawyers in Australia, and then for the prospectus, and then I am good to go. And I am doing nothing else for the next 8 weeks apart from focusing on CleanTech and our ASX listing. I made a lot of promises. Everybody here, I don't think many people invested through me, but I've made a lot of personal promises, as well as the company, to the guys that I'm bringing in the last round and this round, that I'm going to get this done. And I've made a commitment to Steve and to the rest of the board that we're going to get this done. So that's the only focus until we're on the ASX. Ben, thank you very much for your thanks. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, I'd just like to wrap up and say that we really do appreciate the strong support from our investor group in CleanTech Lithium. Obviously, the lithium market's gone through a bad time, but there are signs we're coming through the other side. How long that's going to take is not quite certain, but in the medium term, the lithium market is going to be very, very strong, and we aim to be a very successful company in that lithium market with your support.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I just have to say, look, I think, guys, that the PFS really is going to be key in terms of getting the strategic side. I think and it's really also, by getting this in now, it'll allow us potentially move to April. I think the ASX is going to be much more successful with the PFS in hand, which is targeted towards the back end of March. And if we can get the government announcement on the operating license as well, that will really help us get away. So thank you, everybody, for your support and for your time. And any questions, by all means, email me directly. I'll answer what I can, or direct things to the company where I can't. I put a message on Telegram group, and I'll answer any questions there if we didn't cover them this evening. Okay,
that's great.
Many thanks.
Steve, Daniel, thank you very much indeed for updating investors. If I could please ask you not to close the session, as we'll now automatically redirect you to provide your feedback. Good evening to everybody.